Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Cocktails and Rocktails with me, your most notorious groupie, Alice Rouse, author of this little book right here. These guys right here, where you can get that, my funny ass merchandise, down in the description with the brand new RIP tribute t-shirt to Sweet Sweet Connie. Got some really cool stuff. Go down in that description, hit that link tree, go check it out. Fiddle about. And I like to fiddle about every time by starting being thankful for you guys. Thankful for everybody who watches the channel, who likes who comments, who doesn't like, who doesn't comment, who just watches, who just hangs out and enjoys it. I just truly am so thankful for everybody here and for everybody who's given me more opportunity. I do have an interview with, the Australian radio station again that I've done quite a few times coming up as well. Other interviews lined up. So just thank you guys so much for getting me out there, for really just being like my biggest fan, not fans, we're family. I hate that word fan. My biggest believers, my biggest promoters, my biggest supporters. Just thank you so much, you guys. Always full of love and respect for you guys. And today, we're going to talk about someone that was pretty enigmatic and larger than life in so many ways. That I've hung around quite a few times and saw a lot in him, but a lot of people are fascinated with him, and I think that's one of the reasons he kind of took the path he did. So today we are going to talk about Peter Steele from Type O. And absolutely, like I said, larger than life, but we'll get into that. And we're going to finish our kind of steampunk geek number one sour for like a decade from the Great American Brew Fest. Absolutely fucking kick-ass, you guys. These guys, and they built a bunch of other sours on top of this one, out of this one, built their flavors, really expanded shades. They're going nationwide, so if you find them, check them out. So everybody, grab your shades, kick up your feet, and let's have a little cocktails and goth tales. Cheers, big ears. Like I said, just absolute perfection. I mean, I 100% see why that has been the reigning number one champion, gold medal winner, because it's just the perfect balance. That nice light sour, that still good golden ale flavor, that hint of like almost salt with it. So it's just very well made, very well balanced. Marcio, their brewmaster who did all this, absolutely fucking brilliant. He was a biochemist from Brazil. Came up and this is what he's been up to. Absolutely delicious. And speaking of delicious, we all know Peter Steele, 6'8", larger than life, gorgeous man, absolutely gorgeous, just physically amazing to look at. I mean, the steel blue eyes, that long hair, the big muscles, the way he took care of himself. We all saw him in Playgirl. I was writing the wrong band member. Now I'm kidding. So I wasn't bad because when I met first heard of Type O Negative, first met them was in New York in 1993 when Marie and I were ditching Def Leppard, that whole story. We actually met Kenny and went back to his apartment. And I remember Kenny talking about his band Type O Negative, and they were releasing their album, and he was so excited. And he had the coolest kind of little studio apartment. It was just like this tiny little kitchenette, your sleeping TV sitting area, and a bathroom and a couple closets. But it was just like this cool, like all brick it was just a really cool little studio. And I remember going into Central Park at like 2, 3 in the morning. I'm kind of finding some weed. And they were like, are you fucking crazy? I'm like, no, but they're going to think I am. Ain't nobody going to bother me. Yeah. So came out with some really fucking killer weed. Went back to Kenny's. Me and Marie smoked. We had met him, I believe, at the Limelight that night. But that's when I first heard of Type O Negative. And he was playing some of the demos that he had and stuff, and I was just so fascinated by Peter's voice, by his richness of the voice, by the smoothness, by the poeticness, by the strength in his voice, but also by the vulnerability and the realness in his voice. I was just so fascinated with it, and fascinated by everything, the music that surrounded it, and the New York boys. Oh, I loved New York boys. They were just, them and English boys. They had me at the drop of a hat. Like, you could say hi and I'd be like dropping my panties. Okay. Yeah, just absolutely. And I'm so glad we met him then, because it would made it easier to like hang out with him. That we told him we were from Salt Lake, and oh, we're gonna be going on tour, and I think we're going to Salt Lake. Oh, cool, we'll see you there, which we did. Obviously, they came through Salt Lake City. Well, we'll get into that. Well, let's talk about Peter first, because I think Peter, he was such a sensitive, sweet, sweet, kind man. And that was truly the base of his heart and soul. Just kind, respectful, intrigued, curious, really like could hold a conversation and get to know a person, get to know a woman. And he, he was almost a cop, he really, and I remember Kenny talking about this, that he wanted to stay home. He didn't want to go out on the road. Peter, with his bipolar and his depression and insecurities and his very vulnerable self, because Peter lived in Muslim mysticism and Sufism, it's called the nafs. You have your heart, your soul, and your ego. Your heart lives between your ego and your soul. The ego is meant just for survival, to eat, somebody's hurting you, to fight, whatever. We're supposed to live in the heart and soul, but it's so much more vulnerable to live there. And that's where Peter lived. He was always in a very vulnerable spot, because he lived so truly into his heart and soul, into the kindness down to his bones, but he did suffer from bipolar and depression. And we talk about that a lot lately, because I've been coming in and out of a down spot. But and I think that's one of the hardest things for somebody who suffers depression, when you do live in your heart and soul and you are just your true self. It's so hard to go through that stuff and to be hurt. Like, Peter would give himself wholly to, like, he would see a woman and he would just, that woman would just be the one woman. And, he was hard on himself for cheating, because he did cheat on the road, not with me, but he was with the same girlfriend for 10 years. And then he was destroyed when she cheated on him, which kind of hypocritical, because yes, I know for a fact he cheated. I saw him with the women. He liked these kind of more innocent, what he called the ivory girl, kind of girl next door, that brown hair, not really a ton of makeup, but he had so many goth women around him, because another thing that was very, very hard for him was to live up to the fantasy of what other people wanted him to be, because of his music, because of the facade that he carefully controlled out to the world. So when you're that type of very much a heart and soul person, you're living in that end of your nafs, then you're going to be more vulnerable. You're going to be hurt more. You're going to be more reactive to drowning out that hurt and to getting rid of it. Because like I said, he was going to be a cop. He took the test and had passed it and was going to be, but I could not see him being a cop. I mean, first of all, he'd be Officer Munster, but he was just too kind, too nice. I don't see this guy as being able to carry a firearm or anything like that. Pew pew. He was just that kind of gentle. And not that people who do the job aren't gentle. It's just, it does take, well, we won't even get into that, but I just don't see Peter Steele as being able to be a cop because of his disposition, as he was in his core as a human being. So we had met him in New York, knew all about him, knew that they were struggling about going on the road, because Peter he likes his routine. And I think he really adjusted to the road a lot easier. People, you see on different things, oh, the road killed him, he hated it. Well, the road is where the routine is 100% the same 24/7, 365, unless you have a day off. And it's just like having a day off when you're at home and you have a day off. But as we've learned through me, 7 a.m. to 2 a.m., rock and roll is very scheduled. It runs like a well-oiled machine. You have a very set routine. To this fucking day, there is a set routine. So, I think people are like, it was hard on him, but I think it was more hard on him because he missed home. Because he did have 5 cats that he loved so much, and he did lose one of his cats along the way that it broke him because it hurt, like I said, you're more apt to really feel your feelings of grief, pain, joy, whatever it is when you're living in your heart and soul. And that's where Peter was, and even on his Playgirl shoot, he had a great sense of humor, and he took a lot of things tongue in cheek from what I knew. Even about his Playgirl shoot, he's like, well, maybe I'll get more modeling gigs with my clothes on. It's like, no, Peter, we all saw you with your clothes off. We want you with your clothes off all the time now, okay? You can't unsee that, and who would want to? But so, and the next time I got to see them, Peter was just a very intuitive. He was very much of a devoted son. When he lost his mother, when she passed away, and he was out on the road and he couldn't be with her when she was sick or his dad was sick, it really did affect him. I think that was the only thing that really affected him about the road, because like I said, he found comfort in the routine of the road. And I think that's what kept him very much adjusted and kept him going out, that he knew he could find that routine. He just had to adjust to that routine again. So when we saw him again, it was the last 2 weeks. Kristen and I were in Salt Lake City. It was the last 2 weeks. Salt Lake City was the groupie capital of the world, because we were all moving to different areas of the United States, of the country, and the world, really. But so Kristen and I, the last 2 weeks, were like, there's a fucking new band in town every other day. We're just going to party our asses off. It's the last 2 weeks, and Typo was part of that. And it was a fun night. There's a whole story about the glove. I talk about it in one of the episodes. It says, goodbye to Salt Lake, the girl with there's a flying silhouette on it above the Salt Lake City scene. If I can find it, I'll put the link down in the description. But, we had so much fun. He's like, come up on stage. Like, he could really just pinpoint a woman and know how to make her feel totally comfortable wanting to be totally devoured at the same time, and that you were going to be devoured by him. But I think a lot of where Peter kind of, like I said earlier, he had a really hard time, because a lot of this very typical woman, and nothing wrong with being goth, and nothing wrong with dressing goth and enjoying, the vampire life or anything like, there's nothing wrong with that, because we all have things that we're drawn to. But like I said, Peter was kind of drawn to more of the girl next door, the innocent, the ivory soap type of girl, his ivory lady, as he called her, than he was the goth girl. So, because I think with the goth girls, they had the idea that he was their goth King Arthur, and he was this, poetic Renaissance man, which he really kind of was. But they held him, and he felt so confined by that he couldn't be himself, that he could not relax all the time. And I think that was another thing that got to him, because he was even pigeonholed by women for being very much into a certain kind of music. He was into all kinds of different music. He just really liked worked his voice and everything, and wrote songs. I mean, Bloody Kisses was about his cat that died. But he was very ambiguous. So women think, they're attracted to the song. They're attracted to Christian women. They're attracted to that he does in the middle of the song. That, who doesn't love that? I mean, I was always very, very entranced when I was talking to Peter Steele. Like I said, they were part of the last 2 weeks of Kristen and I's wild time saying goodbye to the biggest groupie scene of the 80s. He was the very first band, Typo, and a few days later, they were going to be in Seattle when Kristen and I were in Seattle. So we hung out with them in Seattle, There was many times that Peter Steele was around in my life during very pivotal moments. Like when the whole reason I even got together with Vincent Paul, I met him before that tour in 95, in April 95, but the whole reason that Andrea and I went down to Salt Lake was to hook up with the tour is because I knew the guys in Type O Negative, and they were cool guys, and I loved hanging out with them. And if I wouldn't have been standing next to the meet and creep room talking to Peter Steele and to Kenny and with Andrea, I would not have ever met Vincent Paul. So Peter he kind of was steering me in different directions, or was there in these big pivotal moments in my life. And with all that said, I think part of the reason he started using those heavy drugs, because when I first met him, it was like we smoked weed and he would have a couple drinks. He was very much into fitness, very much into taking care of himself, didn't want to bother with street drugs because you can never trust street drugs, stuff like that. Very, very conscious of what he was doing. But I think the pain because his girlfriend cheated on him and they broke up, and I think being pigeonholed by other women, I think being hurt very deeply by that. I think being very much expected to be this persona that he just wanted to go home and enjoy his routine there. I think that all contributed to him starting to do those drugs at a later age, because he didn't do those drugs till he was 35. He was older when Type O Negative really became famous, and had a gold record hit and had a platinum record with October Rust, and it was just, I think there was just so much pressure on Peter Steele because, as we all know, and I talk about this a lot of bands are really identified by one or two members, like Pantera, Diamond Vin. That's why they're not Pantera right now. Van Halen, Eddie and Dave. I mean, there are brothers in the band, but Eddie and Dave. Led Zeppelin, Jimmy and Robert. The Who. The camera was always on, Pete Townsend, or that Shire dwelling mouth jockey, Roger Daltrey. So, it's like everybody's always focused, and he was the focus in Type O Negative, and that put a lot of pressure on him too, because why are the other guys, because that does create a little bit of tension. But him and Kenny became drug buddies, and Kenny made him feel a little bit better about doing those drugs, and he got lost in those. They became a crutch to him, and then he physically had a hard time, and mentally and emotionally had a hard time letting go. And Christmas Eve or Christmas night, I can't remember, his family staged an intervention, family and friends. And he was so angry by that and so hurt, even though I know in the deep down inside he appreciated it and he understood it, because he would have done it for any of his friends. He was so reliable and so sturdy and so strong and so kind and so just everything. He was a true Renaissance gentleman, but he was so just, like I said, pigeonholed into being the voice of Type O Negative, into being the spokesperson, and that created tension. When he didn't want to go on the road, Sal, the one that I was with in Type O in New York, and he was in, what was the other band that he was in? Oh God, they were opening up for them that last 2 weeks in Salt Lake when we were hanging out for them. Oh, it'll come to me. Sal was the original drummer, but then he went to another band after that, because he did want to get out there and tour. So, everything hinged on what Peter did, and publicly and privately with the band, and everything hinged on him being a good boyfriend. He was hard on himself, and he went to Rikers Island for beating up the girlfriend's new boyfriend after he caught them together in their place. So that was a harsh thing that he had to deal with. And then he had to go to Rikers, where nobody messed with him, and everybody tended to like him because he was so sweet. But that rides on you, because now all of a sudden you've got a felony. Can you go overseas? Which he had lawyers and stuff, record companies, and plus they were running out of their record contract with Roadrunner Records, and he wanted to move in a different direction, but again, he's stuck. And just, I think between all the mental, emotional toll that he used the drugs to get away from, I think it all just internalized so bad that it just took physical toll on me. He already had blood poisoning or something previously, and it already had other issues physically before he started the drugs, but it just, those drugs took him to a place where he could not turn around from. And in a way, I kind of don't think he really wanted to, because I don't think he wanted to. He would have been happy just going right back to work for the city parks, for the New York City parks, where he was working with Sal and everybody. He would have been just happy working there, you know? But I don't think he could ever go back there, because he was always, even if he did go back to work there, what is Peter Steele from Typo Negative? You were a big famous rock star. You travel the world. What are you doing working for the city parks? Even if he had the money and didn't need to go to work, but just wanted to. Because that's when he, to me, was, when I first met him, that to me is when he was his happiest, before October Rust, before all the fame, before being pigeonholed, before being in Playgirl, before being this huge goth icon, you know? So I think that when he passed away, yeah, there was sepsis and everything that really contributed. There was heart issues, there was strokes, there was all kinds of things that really contributed to his passing, but really, I think he contributed to it in the fact that maybe he felt like it was time to let go of this one and move on to the next, you know? But I'm very glad that I got to meet Peter. I'm very glad I got to see who he really was before the drugs kind of took him. Because after the drugs, yes, I saw Typo a few times, but I could see he wasn't the same guy. And he said that. He said he didn't feel like the same person. He said he didn't feel like himself, you know, because again, I'd never slept with him, but we knew each other to the point where he knew he could talk to me and be comfortable. And I'll never talk about everything that we talked about, because I told him I would never tell, but there's a lot that contributed to the sweetest soul that I ever knew. I mean, just purely sweet soul. Like, and oddly, nobody says he's above groupies. But yeah, I just think that he was ready to move on, because he couldn't go back to the life where he was truly at his most peaceful self. You know, still a hottie, still had women throwing themselves at his feet, but he was just Peter Steele, not that guy from Typo and in Playgirl. Okay, but anyway, no, I'm kidding. I did look at Playgirl, but I didn't look at it that long, because I was like, oh my God, that's like looking at my cousin brother or something, you know, so, but tell me, ladies, if you met Peter Steele, what your experience with him, how you felt about him, how his music kind of touched you. Are you surprised that Bloody Kisses was about his cat? You know? But tell me about anybody that met Peter Steele down in those comments, because we've all met him. There's lots of groupies here. He was the coolest guy. And as always, thank you guys so, so much for getting to the end of the episode with me, for just listening and enjoying the conversation and talking back with me while I'm talking. And even though I don't hear you, thank you guys for just supporting the channel by watching me all the way. It really does absolutely mean the world to me. It means everything to me. So thank you so much. And for those of you just hanging out, just stopping by, hit the subscribe, hit the share. Let's grow this channel to at least 10,000. We're moving steadily to that direction, and I'm so thankful for that and so excited for it, because we're trying to sell this book for a series or a movie deal, because we need the groupies, a real true lifelong groupies perspective, someone who spent 30 years playing the band game. We need that, who wasn't just in one era, who didn't just have friends in one city, you know? So we need a little bit of sex, drugs, and rock and roll and laughter back in our Saturday night TV. But, so hit that subscribe, hit the share, hit the bells, and let's grow here at Cocktails and Rocktails. Cheers, big ears.